Hello, it's your favorite sports Unc here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the fastest growing community on YouTube. Remember, Nightcap doesn't happen without you. So please subscribe or you're going to make Ocho cry. Gregg Popovich stepped out
you in jail.
Gregg Popovich stepped out as the coach of the San Antonio Spurs today, ending a nearly 3-decade run that saw him lead the team to 5 championships. He's the all-time winningest coach in NBA history, and he's a 3-time Coach of the Year, and he's a Hall of Fame, won a gold medal, and he's inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame. Rob, you played for Pop. What was it about Pop that made him special? What's going to be your lasting memory of playing for Pop?
I think for me, it's just how genuine he was. And, he was one of those coaches where he'll yell at you and then take you to have some gnocchi and some wine, his 2 favorite things. And for me, I think I tell this story all the time. The one thing that really made me fall in love with the guy was my daughter, who passed away, was really sick my last year with the Spurs. And she went into the hospital like at the beginning of the season. And he was like, don't come back until she's out of the hospital. And I sat in the hospital with her for like 3 weeks. And then she finally got out of the hospital. And I came back like a day after. He said, is she out of the hospital? Like, yes, she got home like 2 days ago. He said, she ain't out of the woods yet. Go back home. Wow. We don't really need you right now. And I looked at him like, are you trying to get rid of me on the slide? He said, no, man, family first. Family first. And that's how Pop always was, man. I just heard today about the story of DeMar DeRozan when his pops passed, and now it's like, and that goes to show you, there's some things bigger than a freaking game, right? And Pop realized that, he was always about, spending time with your family, doing what's important. And I remember even my last year, I went to him and I was like, I want to ask a favor. He's like, what? I said, it's my last year. I said, my son's on spring break. We're going on a road trip. Can I bring my son with me? He's like, man, yeah, don't even ask me no question like that. He said, this is, it's about the family. It's about doing things. And a lot of teams wouldn't let you do that, because I remember the Lakers back in the day, you said, hey, can you get the flight back? No, it was liability, insurance thing. I'm like, what? Is this a flight home? What? So, but Pop was, he was really, really good about, man, if it came down to your family, you do whatever's necessary for your family.
Everybody talks about the relationship that he had with Duncan, because I think Duncan was the linchpin. Because if you could coach Tim Duncan hard, you can coach everybody else hard. And Timmy was receptive. And that's what you have to. Timmy was one of these superstars that if you didn't watch the game, you would never know he was a superstar. He didn't dress like a superstar. Hell, I remember he showed up to pick up an MVP trophy with flip-flops and shorts on. I'm like, David Stern probably wanted to swing on Timmy.
He had on jorts.
You remember that, Bob?
Yeah, he had on jeans shorts.
Jeans shorts and flip-flops. And David Stern like, hey, but that was Timmy. What was it about Coach Pop and Tim's relationship that made it so unique and special?
I think we're going to back this up a little bit, because you really have to credit David Robinson. Because you think about, he had David Robinson when Tim came, and David was like, yo, this is what we do here. And Tim just followed suit. Tim is just that type of guy. He doesn't say much. You can talk, if you talk about cars, he'll talk to you. You talk about video games, he'll talk to you. You talk about poker. Those 3 things, if you don't talk about that, he ain't gonna really talk to you. But for us, it took me a year just to get him to say a couple words to me. But he is just he is a type of guy who's really focused. We we always talk about Kobe's work ethic. We talk about it, but this dude was always in the gym shooting jump shots. I'm always trying to perfect that bank shot, which we know he's famous for. Shooting a lot of free throws, because that was one of his downfalls.
One of his weaknesses when he came in.
Yeah, and he worked hard, but he was just if you talk about guys who, I had to get onto him one time, like, dude, can you fucking yell at somebody, man? You sitting over there like with your mouth closed, you yell at someone, you're gonna be like E.F. Hutton, everybody's gonna perk up and listen. Right. So he was just he was very mild-mannered. Well, he's mild-mannered, he didn't want to say much, but the guy was he competed, and he was, and when he let you into his world, one of the nicest guys you'll meet.
You mentioned the Twin Towers because David Robinson was there, but when David was there, they won them championship with David, but David was on the tail end of his career. That was basically a Tim Duncan team from the time he walked in the door.
Oh, it was.
He was just that good, and he was one of the last guys that was a true senior that was the number 1 overall. Kenyon Martin was the last one, I think, in 2000. But Timmy was what, 98? I think the 98 draft was Timmy's first year. But he was the last of those guys that went 4 years of college and came out. So he was more than ready, more than prepared for the grind, because basically he was a grown man when he wasn't 18, he wasn't 17. Tim Duncan was a 22-year-old grown man when he got to the NBA.
So you tell me something I did not know. I thought he came out early. You just so used to everybody coming out early. Think about it. And that's the one thing that I hate about the NBA. I know these dudes are freaking 21 when they get to college now, but I just wish that I'm about to say David Stern, that Adam Silver would put like 2 years onto it, because these guys, you can tell by the way these guys play now. That's why so many threes are being shot, because they don't know how to play. They're doing what's easy, just taking the threes and not learning the game. You got some guys that are going to come in the league that know how to play the game because of the upbringing and how they were taught. But it's just a lot of bad basketball being played because guys don't know how to play. You think about tonight, watch the game, like, dude, the first thing you learn in high school and college is how to beat the damn zone. Right. The zone is the easiest freaking thing to beat, and you can't beat a zone. It's like, go to the open spots, go to the dunker spot, go back door. And it just shows you right there that the guys aren't learning anything because they all just trying to, get to the next level to the league without learning something.
Rob, you played with some of the greats. I mean, you was on a team with Tim Duncan. You was on a team with Shaq and Kobe. You was on a team with Dream and Drexler. And I know people ask you, what the difference between Dream and Duncan, the difference between Duncan and Shaq, the difference between Clyde and Kobe. What are some of the different? Because all of those guys that I just mentioned are all 75 greatest players in NBA history. MVPs, Finals MVPs, Defensive Players of the Year. When you got to the Rockets, what was it about the Dream that okay, this guy's special? What set him apart?
Oh shit! I knew Dream was special when I watched him in high school. I mean, college. Because when I was coming out, I said I want to play alongside this guy. I was praying that I went to the Rockets, and God willing, I did, because you could just see his work ethic. You watched him. Guys always talk about going into the lab. Dream would be in the lab, and we didn't even know it. He would be working on stuff, and then he'll just all of a sudden get in the game. You think about in '95 how he annihilated David.
Yeah, because he said they took his MVP from him.
Yeah, all that stuff we had never seen before. You should have seen us on the court. We going like, oh, kill him, Dream. Oh, we became fans on the court, right? And so you watch him, man. He just played hard, man. You think about, back in the day when you forget he used to knock some people out too.
Oh yeah.
He had that toughness. You elbow him, he would because it was only a $50 fine and punch someone in the face. And so he had that toughness, and he just had that. The one thing about Dream though is we talk about how hard guys plays, like how hard Giannis plays, how hard Bronson plays, how hard these guys. Dream played hard each and every night. And people would talk about who's the greatest center, who's this, who's that. Dream to me is always going to be top 3 centers.
Wow.
Because if he needed to shoot threes, he could have shot threes. He didn't, because he had us out there, and you couldn't stop him in the paint any damn way. So he just going to kill you that way. So he was just, he was just a hard worker, but more importantly, great guy, because he taught me about the business of basketball. He was like, I remember one time at a Christmas party, he took me outside and said, listen, you're going to be on this team now. Let's talk about, things outside of basketball. What you're doing with your money. How's the family? Are you investing? Do you have the right people? He was just a good guy. A lot of guys now, they won't come to you and be like, yo, man, you need to check your finance. You need to do this. They can like, fuck it. I learned it on my own. You on your own. And so that's one of the things I loved about Dream. He taught me about the business of basketball.
So you leave Houston and you go to you didn't go right to the.
You ain't got to go there, man.
No, you have.
You ain't got to talk about the Suns, man.
You had a little pit stop in Phoenix. You had a cup of coffee at the airport. You got right back on the plane and went to L.A. So you get to L.A. Shaq and Kobe. Mm-hmm. What you like? Damn, got Shaq, got Kobe. What y'all need me to do?
Yeah, it's weird. When I got there, man, I was looking at the team. We had Nick Van Exel at the point. We had Eddie Jones at the 2. I said, okay, I can play the 3. Back then I was a 3-man. And I said, we got a young guy like this. Everybody was like, oh, you got to see his rookie, Kobe Bryant. I'm like, who? And then you get to the practice, you see how good this dude is. Okay, he's learning. And then you got Shaq. You say, okay, Shaq just got beaten 95 in the finals, and you got all this talent. I said, oh, man, we about to do some work. I said, we're going to do some work for some years because everybody's young. Everybody's under 30. But sometimes it goes to show you, too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to basketball ain't good. You got to have some guys that are glue guys, some screw guys, some bolts and do the things to keep the team together. And you think about, we had 4 All-Stars.
Yeah. And
then we got swept by a damn team that's been together for 30 years.
Utah, that was Kobe's rookie year, wasn't it?
That was Kobe's rookie year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then in that 99, we got beat by the Spurs, lost the last game in the Forum to the Spurs. And then that was when we got new coaches, and we said we got rid of Nick, we got rid of Eddie, and we brought in defensive-minded people. We brought in Ron Harper, we brought in B. Shaw, we brought in Rick Fox. We did all these things. We brought in AC Green, and it was that glue.
Was Ho Grant there then, or Ho Grant only came for the last one?
No, Ho Grant was on the second championship in 2000, 2001. Right. Yeah, so and it was just weird, man. And it goes to show you, when you got too much talent,
it's hard to blend.
It can get in the way, but when you got enough talent and you got guys who are mature, and you can tell Kobe and Shaq to shut up and sit your ass down and do what you're supposed to do, and they're gonna. You think about it. We used to tell Kobe, "No, dude, you ain't doing that tonight." Or Shaq, you ain't doing that, and they will listen to us because we are veteran guys. Now you got this going on. Guys, respect us. We had a lot of respect for one another, and it was no animosity. And people always ask me about the Kobe Shaq thing. I was like, man, I must have been fucking blinded because they never had beef in front of us. It was all in the papers, man, and that was the weirdest thing when people would talk about it. I'm like, they in the locker room laughing and joking. They the first people to hug after a championship. I know you tell me, you won a championship. Who's the first person you hugged after you won a championship? Probably your favorite player on the team.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I was like mesmerized. They would say, oh, they beefing. I'm like, when? Where? So it was just weird to me.
How good was Shaq? You look at Shaq, and I tell people, I don't think people realize how athletic Shaq was. When Shaq got to the league, like Shaq first 5 or 6 years, when Shaq was like 7'1", 325, and can move like a deer, we're never going to see that again. Mm-hmm. You're never going to see a guy his size with that kind of agility. You're just not. Now, you might have like a Jokic got the footwork, and Joel Embiid got footwork, but I'm talking about just raw athleticism and power.
And dominance.
You're never going to see a Shaquille O'Neal again. Never.
Yeah, never. You think about, if you always talk, if you start a team, if I could take the 1999, 2000 Shaq, the MVP Shaq, and have him, that Shaq, and put him on, that's my first person, not Jordan, not Dream, not Kareem. That's the first person I'm picking to start my life. I can get that Shaq because he was just so dominant. He was just so strong, so athletic. You think about this. This guy can bring the ball down, cross you, spin, take off from outside the paint, then monkey dunk on your ass, and then you could do, you go back and look at a lot of tape, and I've heard this out of refs' mouth, so I'm sitting there. You can hear all you hear on him, and he's not getting the call. They're like, oh, he's too big. He should be able to handle it. I'm like, dude, it's a freaking foul. He's slapping the shit out of you. I said, all right, y'all going to piss him off, and then I'm going to get out of the way because he's going to start elbowing people. And you can tell when he got frustrated because he'll do that spin, put that elbow up.
When he comes like this here.
And he don't care who he hit. I'm like, so, he was like I said, if you got one player, one moment, I'm taking 1999, 2000 Shaq, and I'm starting a team with that guy if I can get that guy each and every night.
Okay, Kobe. Kobe is a 17. He gets there at 17. Now, by the time they start to win championships, he's the Kobe. He's become what he became, and you get to see it on full display. He can still elevate over the top. He got the midi. He could bop. Oh, he had the package. And if you need him to sit in the chair for 40 minutes and take the opposing team's point, 2, 3, I got it.
Yeah.
He wanted that challenge. And I know you think LeBron is the greatest of all time, and people talk about MJ being the greatest of all time. I want you to think, when you watch Kobe Bryant, he did every freaking thing like MJ. And he probably took it to another level because Kobe, when Kobe first came in the league, we used to laugh and joke like, you can't shoot threes. He didn't shoot threes like MJ. But we would like joke with him. So that dude would be in the gym every morning at 5 o'clock shooting number threes. And now he can shoot threes. And it's things like that why he was great. You could tell him he was not good at something. He would prove you wrong by going and working on it and adding to his game. This dude, God rest his soul, was the hardest working dude I ever seen in my life. And you think about where he went from his rookie year, where he just played wow. Yeah. He didn't have no structure to his game, to understanding that, I got to tone this down. I don't know if it's because he talked to MJ, he talked to Phil or whatnot, but when he got Phil, it made him more structured than I've ever seen before. So the dude was just phenomenal, man. So I hate when we talk about the GOAT and we never bring him up, because it's like, to me, the GOATs are MJ, Kobe, LeBron, and Kareem. Those are the GOATs. And why do we have to put 1, 2, 1, 3, and 4? Those 4 guys right there. Why can't just 4 GOATs? That's the Mount Rushmore right there.
Why didn't playing on that team alongside Shaq and Kobe, why didn't they win more individual MVPs? Kobe didn't win one until late like 2000, I think 2009 or 2010, he won the MVP. Why didn't they win? Why didn't Shaq win more MVPs? Why didn't Kobe win MVPs? Did they cancel each other out?
I don't think they cancel each other out. I just think, if you look at the league back then, it was hard to win back-to-backs unless you was a white guy, meaning Steve Nash. And so, you think about that second Steve Nash.
Shaq should have won that in Miami for real, though.
Yeah. So it's so many things you can look at. It's just weird. You think about MJ when he was in the league. He didn't win it every year. It's always someone different. And you think about this year, even though Jokic is having the best freaking best year of his career, he ain't going to win it. They're going to probably give it to Shaq. And it's just how they do it. And I don't know why, but I think Kobe should have probably won at least 3. Shaq should have won at least, Shaq should have won at least 2. I think I say the year he won it, he should have won it. And then the following year, he should have won it. Other than that, I think, because you think about our third championship, he wasn't as dominant as he was. He was still effective. He just didn't bring that. You think about it, he wasn't the Shaq before that. And that's what they based it off. They always say, okay, we're going to take your last year. What did you do better than that year? And I think it was just consistent. He never went up a little bit to another level.
Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan had one of the great games. He had a damn near quadruple double. He was 2 blocks away from a quadruple double in an NBA Finals game when he played the Nets. That year, I think he had 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks.
Yeah. That was the Nets, man. The Nets. That was the Nets. We had just swept the Nets the year before that, or whatever it was. The Nets was like, poor Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, that crew. You were a beast in the East, but when it came to playing the teams East to West, you were just like the Lakers and the Clippers. You're just a little brother. So it was. They made it a good challenge, but you go back and look at the East back then. East was terrible, man. They were god awful. And so, but Tim Duncan, though, that goes to show you when he wants to take over, he can take over, man. And the one thing I like about Tim, when it comes to blocking shots, he didn't care if you dunked on him. He's like, shit, I don't care. I don't have social media. I don't care what you say. People in San Antonio are going to still bow down to me. And, most guys will shy away from trying to, go up against a Vince Carter, think you might get dunked on. They're like, nah, I ain't challenging that. Tim didn't give a shit. He would try to challenge you anyway to block it because he knew 9 times out of 10 he was going to block it and it's going to start a fast break.
All right, your Mount Rushmore teammates. You get 4 teammates on Mount Rushmore. Who you going with?
Dream, Shaq, Kobe, Clyde.
Damn, you took Clyde over Timmy?
You know what? This is one thing, I love Timmy, but I'm going with Clyde. Clyde's my boy, man. Sometimes personal feelings get in the way sometimes. Hey, I'm doing the Steve Kerr right now. I'm putting, but people don't, I think people forget how good Clyde was, man.
The point, he took a kind of a backseat role when he got to Houston, but Portland Clyde, Portland Clyde. I remember when he was dunking on everybody at Five Slammer Jammer at the University of Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Clyde used to elevate.
Yeah. You know, and the other reason I put Tim in there is because I remember, you know, I'm watching the Hall of Fame ceremony and I watched Rudy T get inducted. And then when Rudy T gave me a shout out for the Hall of Fame and they panned through the crowd and Tim didn't clap. So that's why he ain't on my Rushmore.
Hey.
Because I started calling and said, motherfucker, I saved your ass in 2005. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
You better get your ass up and clap. Missing that damn layup, now I had to take over.